I'm Connor Old, and this is Old's Oscar Countdown. Today, we're going to be looking at what I call the leftover categories. All the categories that we haven't covered, aside from the shorts, because the shorts, no one really cares about, and really you can't find out too much about them. I can only say so much. I will be, of course, guessing the shorts, but that will be in next week's episode, which will be the nominations. So this post, you're seeing this, will be on the Thursday, and then the nominations come out this upcoming Tuesday. So what I'm going to be doing is, and that's Tuesday morning, so I'm actually going to be probably recording a video Monday morning and posting it sometime that afternoon to get you guys watch it, and maybe even before, we'll see, maybe that day. I just want to keep my my reactions fresh for that day so that they're accurate. That'll be my final big sort of Oscar predictions video. As much as I've said all these predictions, I have had some changes, of course, like I said in October, you can't predict everything change. The race changes so much, and after seeing PGAs and WGAs, I can talk about them. But I'm going to talk about all of the big sort of things on the big sort of more popular categories, Best Picture, so on and so forth, in that video, because it's just in a few days you can get my thoughts in there. It's going to be a huge, awesome video. I can't wait for that. And then what I'm really happy about also is I'm going to be doing right after that, I'm guessing probably maybe the Thursday. Of course, I'm going to do a reactions video to that. So some of the things like I did last year. That being said, I'm also going to do my second annual Connors. The first annual Connors was last year. It's essentially an award show that I do with my category, similar to the Oscars, but a little bit less. And what from the movies I think, and my best picture of the year, my favorite design, my favorite animated, right? Little things like that. I had a blast doing it last year, although it didn't go as well as it planned. So I hope this year goes a little bit better. And I can't wait for that. It should be a lot of fun. So a lot of good things coming down the pike. But for this episode, these are sort of the leftover categories that I did want to cover. Some important categories, things like best editing, best visual effects, and best foreign film. But let's just start off the show by saying, if you're new to the series, what I do every single week is I break down a new Oscar category and I talk about what I think is going to get nominated and then some possibles. Because we are so late into the game now here, and then less than a week before the nominations, I put these past few videos. I've been putting a lot of the groups together. That makes sense. This is the only one where the leftovers, not a lot of them make sense, but I want to do them nonetheless. So let's just jump right into it. And number one, what I think is going to get best editing is, boom, Dunkirk. This is from Lee Smith, Christopher Nolan's sort of only editor, sort of his Thelma Schoonmaker to Martin Scorsese. And it's sort of, I know a lot of directors have their sort of counterpart in that singular editor. For Christopher Nolan, it is Lee Smith. And this is definitely an Oscar sort of, it's somewhat of a front runner. I think some people maybe are denying it, but it has a chance for sure. And I think that editing is one of my favorite edited movies of the year, to be honest, because of how unique it is, because it has the week, which is on land, and then I think a day on sea, and then in an hour in the air. So you have the ground, you have the sea, you have the air. It's unique sort of cutting in between the stories, how they tell the story, where one character, you see him one way, and then later on in the movie you see him previously, before, sort of like a flashback, that meeting up with a different character. So they intertwine, they meet with each other for the most part, and just being able to intercut between so that there's intensity almost non-stop throughout the movie. Now this is a bad way, that's almost poorly structured, but it is very well edited in terms of it goes from one to the next, and you can feel sort of they have a similar sort of arc and progression, just different time periods with different characters, and just an incredible feat. I really think that Dunkirk is the standout right now, but a big thing for the editing category, which just says a lot about my list, is that a lot of the editing nominations go with Best Picture winners, or at least they have to get nominated. So I think that tells a lot when I hear about editing, and if a couple things get left off, I'll be like, might have to change my picks. We'll see, I don't know. And the next pick is Get Out. And editing for, thrillers is particularly important by building that suspense and changing the way you think. And actually, Jordan Peele really worked hard with his editor, who, most of these editors actually on this list they're not known, at least my possibles. The only really known one is Lee Smith, who got nominated twice. But for Jordan Peele's editor, Jordan Peele and his editor worked really well in creating things that work the first time, but then also work a different way the second time for multiple viewings. The film really lends itself to multiple viewings, and I can attest to that myself. I've seen the movie twice, and seeing it again that second time, I could really say, oh, now that you know this, why did they do that? What was that? That's never an unmotivated camera movement. The way they sort of edit things in the cut scenes earlier, or let scenes maybe lag on a little bit too long, and the first time it's a little unsettling, but the second time it's like, I see where you're getting at. It's lends itself really well to that rewatchability. I think that's why it's on a lot of people's top 10 list, because they can watch it over and again and get new things, and those are some of the movies I love. So I really like Get Out for that reason. I think the editing is unique in that sense, and I think people will recognize that. Next pick is The Shape of Water. And whatever everyone's been saying about this movie, which is true to a certain extent, maybe people are overblowing it, maybe I'm even overblowing it, but in a sense it does have a fairy tale aspect. Guillermo del Toro is known for that, sort of like a Pan's Labyrinth. It's less so in that sense, but it is fairy tale, and I think that has a lot to do with how the story is told. Not only the music and how things are shot, but how the story is told, and more importantly, the pace of the movie. And that's what editing has a lot to do about, is the pace and how it goes from one to one, just the sort of flow that goes through. There's never a scene that I would say, you could take that out, because everything sort of fits and moves together. It's the right length. It's really well done. It's sort of a seamless editing. It's not hard like Dunkirk or noticeable like Get Out. It's very much seamless, and I think that sort of the less editing, I think a lot of the editors recognize that as, that's what their job is, to show as little editing as possible, because you want to immerse the audience. And I think The Shape of Water does that well. The next pick is Baby Driver. I mean, this is editing on showcase for sure. This is very flashy editing, because director Edgar Wray and his editor, I believe there's 2 editors on this, so we have real control over the movie. To the little minutiae things I really appreciate, I've talked about in the last episode, where you see the words on the graffiti on the wall as you're hearing the lyrics to the song, and that great sort of one take of Baby getting the coffees that we've seen so many times. And then just the little things to how the energy moves, and how it's so much people say it's fun. It's got a sense of lively energy, and a topic that I've been always interested in, the idea of energy. And that idea comes from the editing and how things work together, and sort of the action paced, where it does a lot of cuts, but it does them very well, more along the lines of the Jason Bourne movies than, say, Taken 3, which does it terribly, right? It's not that shaky cam footage, but it is that sort of fast pace where you're trying to comprehend everything. But they storyboarded this movie, they did it shot by shot, and you can really tell, and it's really well done in terms of the editing perspective. And my last pick is a big surprise for a lot of people. I'm going with Lady Bird for one reason. Right now I'm predicting Lady Bird to win. Now that could change very well. I mean, it's such an open race. I mean, there's like 6 movies that could win. It's an incredible Oscars this year. I can't wait to talk about it in my final predictions video. But for Lady Bird, I'll be looking at this category for editing. If it gets in, I'll be like, wow, that's a solid contender. But here's the thing, here's the stats. And the Best Picture winner has been at least nominated for editing every year in the 21st century, except Birdman. And I remember that was a bit of a surprise, but also you have to think about it, Birdman, there really is no editing. The movie seems like it's one long take. I mean, you could tell people it was one long take and they didn't do any edits, and they believe you. So that's maybe one reason why they didn't really want to award it. So that's a caveat, I'd say. So really almost every year, a Best Picture winner has been nominated. So if Lady Bird, which right now is not being predicted to get nominated for editing, doesn't have fantastical editing, if it doesn't get in here, I mean, that's a big sort of what if to the chances of Lady Bird. So I'm gonna have to always just watch out for that for sure. Now, my next possible is 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri. Now, this is great because you never know where the story is going to go. It takes some huge risks and some huge different turns you never see coming. And I think some people will test that storytelling style to the editing of the movie. My next pick is The Post. I think they did a great job with this movie of how it starts off of this is the everyday life of the Post, right? The Washington Post, how it functions. And then as the movie goes along and as the pressure really gets to them and like, should we do this, should we don't do this? There's so many pros and cons for each. We could go to jail. I mean, that pressure, the thriller aspect that Steven Spielberg is able to create so well, the editing almost comes almost a little faster. The drama is heightened and you can really feel that claustrophobia almost of making the decision, just wanting to do it. And then once they do it, just that sense of just like letting go, and the takes are a little bit longer, and how they edit things together is a little more seamless. It's really well edited movie, I think. I think if they really recognize that, and if The Post is a serious contender, it could get in here. But I could see a scenario where Lady Bird doesn't get in, and then 3 Billboards does, or Shape of Water doesn't, or Baby Driver. I put that in. This is an odd choice because it is very much an edited movie, but it's not a Best Picture contender, right? I mean, it would be great to say Baby Driver, get out of there and put 3 Billboards with The Post in there, right? But right now, I mean, these are sort of these editing nominees are sort of my tops for Best Picture. Dunkirk, Get Out, Lady Bird, Shape of Water, and then 3 Billboards, The Post. I mean, there's too many front runners right now, but right now the big front runners I think are Lady Bird, 3 Billboards, and Get Out, or even Shape of Water. So if one of them doesn't get in editing, I might have to say, okay, screw you, Lady Bird, Get Out, and put that in there. You never know. Okay, so let's move over into Best Foreign Film. Okay, my first pick for this foreign language feature category is The Square. Now, this is Sweden's selection, and this is the movie that actually won the Palme d'Or at the Cannes Film Festival. So if you don't know, Cannes Film Festival, one of the biggest film festivals, and the Palme d'Or is the winner of the Best Picture, essentially, and this movie won that. So really, for foreign language films, what I've noticed is that, at least for me and when I'm picking my nominations, it's sort of awareness. Do I know about this movie? Do people know about this movie? Is it in sort of the circles, the movie circles, that people will try it out? Because then once they try it out, then they'll recommend it, and then they'll sort of have the snowball effect. It's almost just trying it out first is a big deal. So I think that because it won the Palme d'Or, that's a definite signature that, it could get nominated and very well win. But it's also very much like the Tony Erdmann of this year. It's very much, I think, like a screwball comedy, has that weird sort of European sensibility of the style of humor. Plus, this is Ruben Östlund's sort of total vision. He's the director of Force Majeure. He's also the director and writer of this movie. It's very much his baby in that sense, and I think The Square could get in for that nomination. My next pick is A Fantastic Woman. This is Chile's selection, and it stars Daniela Vega, who's the first transgender actress sort of in this main role, and I've heard great things about her performance, and I've seen this movie itself in a lot of top 10 movies, and her in a lot of sort of best actors of the year and what she's done. So I think just because of that, people will see the movie, and I think if Hollywood does want to send a message of inclusivity, they'll definitely nominate her as sort of in this movie as a sort of message movie in that sense, although I've heard great things about it nonetheless. My next pick is Israel's selection, which is Foxtrot. Now, the interesting thing about Foxtrot is that, from what I've heard, the Israeli Prime Minister saw the movie, did not like it. Now, you could say, who cares, it's the Prime Minister, but for a lot of these movies, including Israel and these countries, really, the foreign film language film category is a weird category, because some countries, their department, like Canada, the Department of Art is separate than the government, like how it should be. But then some of these other countries, they're intertwined with the government, so the government wants to select movies that send a political message. So things happen like that. But this year, for the Prime Minister not to like it, and for them still to nominate it, and for her to make the shortcut, I mean, this movie's got 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. People really enjoy this movie, so I wouldn't be surprised if we saw something like this win, but I think it's definitely going to get the nomination. It really just shows the testament of the strength of the movie. And my next pick here is Loveless. This is from Russia, and this is from the writer and director of Leviathan, which got nominated 3 years ago for Best Foreign Language Film, and a lot of people thought it actually should have won. It lost to Ida that year, another great foreign language film. But a lot of people consider this one of the best foreign films of the 21st century, and hold it in high regard. And so I think that maybe a lot of people think it got robbed in that year when Ida won. So they want to nominate it again, or nominate this director, possibly have a campaign for him to win, similar to last year with Asghar Farhadi, with The Salesman winning. Maybe not the best film, but because of the things with Trump, and possibly not allowing him to come to the Oscars. That was a big sort of thing in that sense. So I think Loveless, and plus I've heard great things about it, so I think Loveless could get in here. My final pick here is In the Fade. This is Diane Kruger's movie, which Diane Kruger is sort of like an American type, it's not American, but actually I don't know what she is, but she speaks a lot of languages, and she does mostly English language movies, and this is her first German language movie in itself. And I think that I see the scenario where people are looking through their screeners, and they're going to see, well, I got to get through these foreign films. Which ones do I look? Oh, Diane Kruger. I know Diane Kruger, and they'll try it out. So I think a lot of people will try it out, therefore will know it, therefore will nominate it. That sort of idea. I also I have a couple of possibles here. Now, I didn't pick these possibles because I just didn't really hear much about them. All the others, I heard them in top 10 lists of critics and whatnot, or something like Diane Kruger's, and that's so I hear about that. I think that's going to qualify two people where they're going to hear about it, they're going to watch it, and they're going to nominate it. That's going to be sort of the spiral. But foreign film, language film category, I said, very strange. You can never predict. It's a hard one to predict for sure. Now, these two possibles. First one is The Wound. This is a South African movie. Haven't heard too much about it, but I heard it as sort of like a touching road trip type movie where you discover your sexuality. Interesting concept. And then my next possible, which is The Insult. This is Lebanon's selection. It's a Lebanese movie where sort of a minor incident between two people end up splitting the two cultures of the Lebanese culture and the Palestinian culture. And I mean, in America, a lot of people feel that their country is divided themselves, so they think that this could sort of resonate in that foreign aspect. So you never know. Okay, let's move over into best visual effects. Okay, and the first pick of visual effects you probably would have guessed, and I think it could be close to a lock to the win, which is War for the Planet of the Apes. I mean, this trilogy is incredible. I think they're going to want to reward that trilogy similar to something like they did with The Return of the King. And I mean, this movie, all about it is visual effects. You have Andy Serkis, who him and the directors and the team behind this and at Weta have really revolutionized performance capture and made it a serious thing. I mean, it looks even more incredible. I look at some other movies and I say, why isn't it like War for the Planet of the Apes? If they put so much money into it, it's just the idea of performance capture and the amount of work that goes into it. They really focus on it, and I think it's going to get nominated because it's most critically liked movie. Not my favorite, but most critically liked, and just really a really well done movie. And I think the visual effects are so on par, and it's incredible. And I mean, they single-handedly made performance capture like a mainstream title, and I think they should be rewarded for this incredible achievement in filmmaking. My next pick is Blade Runner 2049, because one of the most iconic shots of the movie is Ryan Gosling with his sort of advertisement that interacts with him that looks like his girlfriend, right? So that's sort of what that says, and they put, it's like $150 million budget. They lost all that, so I mean, heck, maybe they'll get some of those nominations back with some Oscar attention. But you know, the visual effects have to go somewhere, but really beautiful in visual effects, I think. Now, Blade Runner, I've been putting a lot in a lot of my categories. It could not get in, but I think people really enjoy this movie, and may not get in for the best pictures and whatnot, but it will get in more of these technical categories, and I'd be happy so, because one of my favorite movies of the year is Blade Runner 2049. Big fan of that. My next pick is Star Wars: The Last Jedi. I mean, I think this will get nominated for visual effects, because even Rogue One got nominated for visual effects, and that was terrible, those visual effects. I did not like those visual effects at all. But if you think of something like, you have the typical sort of visual effects of the space battles and the X-Wings and whatnot, but you also have unique creatures that they created, something like the Porgs, which you see on scarves, to bananas, stickers on bananas. Porgs are everywhere. And then you have the incredible detail, which I really appreciate with Andy Serkis' once again, Andy Serkis' performance capture of Snoke, the incredible detail. They go in, and it changed since the trailers, and the amount of like sort of the veins, and how he has this weird distorted face that's bigger than his body. Very unique, and they show all that, and it's a beautiful shot. The visual effects are incredible. One of the best of the year, in my opinion. And then my next pick is The Shape of Water. Now, this pick could be a surprise snub, because it actually didn't even make the shortlist for makeup and hairstyling, where I thought it was a lock for sure. So something like that, you know, you never know. But visual effects, because they did have a lot of makeup and whatnot on the creature himself, but then they added some things later, like his eyes and whatnot. So maybe they thought there was no makeup and it was all visual effects, so they'll nominate Shape of Water for visual effects. That's the hunch I'm getting right now. So I'm going to go with it there. And then my final pick is Okja. You remember this movie, Netflix, Bong Joon-ho? The big thing was this giant pig. He looks very real. They do a lot of close-ups with him. Of course, that shot, I mean, this straight from My Neighbor Totoro anyways, but of the girl laying on his stomach. So they do really use this guy as a character, and it was a big risk, because it could have felt not real, but it feels real, feels with sort of the kooky world that Bong Joon-ho has created, and made him almost like a character. So Okja, because of this giant pig, I think will get in there. And two possibles. The first one is Dunkirk. I don't really see the visual effects here, so I think they're just gonna, if they like Dunkirk a lot, they're gonna nominate in every single one of these below the line categories. Therefore, it could get in, and it could be like a Mad Max winning a lot of these, because I see it as a frontrunner for a lot of them too. So that could get in for visual effects. If it does, I think that shows the strength of Dunkirk in these below the line categories. My final pick possible is Valerian, the City of a Thousand Planets. That opening sequence alone, really the first half of the movie, so incredibly dazzling and unique. And the visual effects aren't necessarily as detailed for every single creature, but there are so many unique, brand new sort of to screen, at least it was based on the French comic book, new to screen, these visual creatures. There's so many creatures, there's so many meticulously designed creatures, really interesting, and I think that's definitely a quantity sort of thing. So wouldn't be surprised if sort of Valerian slips in there, because it was well liked for the most part among critics, sort of a surprise, even though a box office failure. So anyways, guys, those are my leftover categories. Make sure you tune in the next couple of days for my final Oscar categories where I update everything. That's one where you're going to want to watch for sure, because you're going to see things like, where are my best pictures now, you know, where everything, how do I change up the actors? The actor race has completely changed in my opinion. Actresses race is still as competitive as before. So things like that. I mean, I don't think I'm going to change really any of these. I'll tell you in that video, I'll read them out. I'm not going to be doing a lot of explanations, but reading them out, maybe doing some explaining why I changed certain things and seeing what are the categories you should really focus on, which ones I'm not so sure about. That should be a fun one. And then after that, like I said at the top of the show, the Connors, the second annual Connors, which is my award show, should be a lot of fun. Anyways, guys, make sure you like the video, comment below. Let me know what are some of your picks. I'm Connor Old, and until next time, stay tuned.